Good evening and welcome to the second installment of our Spring 2021 Broadside Reading Series, curated by the truly miraculous Purvi Shah. My name is Devin Manibo, and I am the marketing manager here at Center for Book Arts, and I am tuning in today from Brooklyn, the traditional unceded territory of Lenape, Rockaway, and Canarsie peoples. I do suggest that you also tell us where you're coming from. In the words of my mentor and friend Jack Pryor, it must be our intention that our work is in service to the rightful return of the land to its peoples and toward healing, justice, and liberation for all. The theme of this season's series is Healing Futures, Attending Wounds, Tending Lineages. The Broadside Reading Series, as one of the center's longest running public programs, features 6 writers in spring and fall collaborating with CBA's community of artists to create a collection of limited edition letterpress printed broadsides. The collaboration explores the relationship of text, image, and design, incorporating the artist's visual conveyance of writers' poetry. It's been truly stunning to work with poet Purvi Shah, who describes her curation process. The poet pairings are prisms, light shared, light refracted, light pooled. The poet pairings are histories and futures unfolding. We invite you to witness this unfolding with the illustrious Zakia Henderson-Brown and Heidi Andrea Restrepo Rhodes, as well as visual artist Adama Delphine Fawundu and Matt Collins, who is not available tonight, but I will be presenting on his behalf. The program wouldn't be possible without the support of poets and writers through public funds through New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council, as well as the support from our growing global book arts community. While a donation tonight is not expected or necessary, it's certainly appreciated. We'd also like to note that in honor of AAPI Heritage Month, all proceeds from purchases of broadsides tagged with AAPI voices in our bookshop will be donated to our friends at Kundiman, a national organization dedicated to the creation and cultivation of Asian American creative writing. I will now turn it over to Purvi Shah and the poets.
Good evening, everyone. So lovely to have you all here in the room. I invite you as we go through this evening to share in the chat. Feel free to respond. Feel free to ask questions that Heidi and Zakia can later answer. It's a joy to be with you all here today. My name is Purvi Shah, and I am coming to you from unceded Lenape and Canarsie lands in Brooklyn, New York. And I also want to acknowledge the words of Rasha Abdul Hadi at this moment, who said, wherever you are today, you can say Palestine. At work, whether you gather with loved ones, on a call, at a virtual event, it doesn't have to be a speech. It's possible to practice saying Palestine and inviting the aliveness of Palestinians in wherever you are. Wherever you are, I invite you to invite in Palestinian aliveness, to invite in all anti colonial struggles, and the writers that we have here with us today, who I'm so excited to be with all of you today. I'm going to invite you, if you would like to, feel free to turn on your video if it's possible for you. And if it is more comfortable not to do so, feel free also to keep your video off. We're going to start with a small somatic group activity to ground us together. And then I will share a little bit about Heidi and Zakia and read a few poems of my own, and then pass it over to Heidi and then Zakia to read in duets and interaction with each other. This somatic activity is just a way for us to get into the present moment, to be in connection with each other. It is an offering. Feel free to do whatever feels available to you. So you're just going to take your right hand and fingers, and you're going to just like pulse a little bit. And this tapping activity that we're about to do is something I learned from my friend Zoe Flowers, who is a Reiki practitioner as well. So you're just going to tap along your chest. And As you tap, you're just like, wake up, wake up. And also feeling again the aliveness that you have with you. If it feels right to you, feel free to take your right hand and just tap along your left arm, going down from the top to your fingertips. After you've done that a few times, feel free to switch arms and take your left hand and tap along your right arm to the fingertips. And then go ahead and take just 2 fingers and tap against your wrist where you can sometimes feel your pulse. And again, on the other side, tapping again your wrist. And feel free to also shake that out. So thank you all again for joining in. I invite you at any moment. I know that virtual work and virtual readings and virtual life can be a strain. Feel free to move around, feel free to tap, feel free to do what brings you alive into this moment. We have such a treat with us tonight. I am so excited to have Zakia Henderson-Brown and Heidi Andrea Restrepo Rhodes with us today. Both of these poets have mesmerizing work that really teaches us about lineages, about haunting, what Heidi calls a hauntological, the presence of ghosts and the ways in which we strive for aliveness. In particular, both Zakia and Heidi are activists and documentarians. Documentarians for not only the purpose of witness, but for the purpose of revelation and love. You will find Zakia's work in What Kind of Omen Am I?, the winner of the 2017 Poetry Society of America Chapbook Fellowship. But you will also find, and yes, feel free to snap and give all the props. Yes. You will also find her imprint and legacy in her work as a board member at the Brooklyn Movement Center, which has done beautiful community building work with a focus on Black leadership and love. I also love particularly Zakia's way of introducing herself as made of starshine and clay lineage. And that introduction, I think, is a way that Zakia brings the universe to herself and brings herself to the universe. It is, again, this way of rooting tradition, lineage, of histories of violence woven in with histories of incredible resilience, beauty, and tenderness. There is a facing in Zakia's work that is so vital and important. As she says in I'm Not a Kind at All, in fact, she says, quote, I've never met anyone like you. Every man I've ever loved has said, after trying to turn me to stone before turning to stone. And she counters that sense of possible harm, of possible stoniness with this insistence on living, this insistence on wilderness, this insistence on being. Or, as she says in The New Life, others compel us to become our own benedictions. So beautiful. Others compel us to become our own benedictions. With a lineage of starshine and clay, there is no room except for benediction. And I'm so excited for Zakia to be here with us tonight and share her work. Heidi, similarly, is a writer, scholar, artist, and activist. and has served as the outreach representative for queer and trans incarcerated poets for Nepantla, a journal for queer people of color. And Heidi's debut collection, The Inheritance of Haunting, came out in March 2019 and was chosen by Ara Limon for the 2018 Andres Montoya Poetry Prize. So congratulations to Heidi. Heidi has this beautiful way of bringing in language, landscape, diaspora, ghosts, and the presence in order to invoke future. As she says, and they said, never trust a mermaid, siren song for femmes, quote, "Oh mermaids, our exhibitions are for our own mapping. We will glimmer the glossy bright of fuchsia and venerate our bodies' deviations, every, all." Such a beautiful lacing of bodies, bodies sometimes treated with so much disrespect, called fea or ugly, or so many attributes of patriarchy. That body reclaimed in Heidi's language. Or as she says in Heart of the Bell, quote, "To know the catastrophe to come, but nonetheless ring and ring and ring and ring." I'm so excited to have Heidi here tonight so you can hear her poems ring and all the amazing ways in which a future is made possible in her work. In honor of both of these poets, from my work, I'm going to share a couple of poems that intersect with these ideas of haunting, lineage, and resilience. These poems are from my book, Miracle Marks, and the first one is called Saraswati Rendering Between Sparrows. Every house shares a haunting. You smell childhood waiting to fly away. The police lights do not respond to the raised voices in the wall, neither do you. You have opened foreign banks, offshoring memories, believing your own songs are unremarkable, small, narrow, unworthy. In your closets, bullied selves melting, you navigate mythologies as if they could be, as if the story is just beginning, or if in the blink of an eye you missed all the vital parts, perhaps even your only way home. Call and trill and call and trill and call and relent. And you wish you know not the names of birds serenading your walls. You have begun surveying from your glass to the church raising its steeple as a fist, this keen beak at your back. You move between sparrows, curtain and flight, transcendence and nameless, haunting and home. Sometimes a bed tastes of island, how two can enter from split shores, how conversation feathers your rooms of hopes, notes hemming or heaters whirring, gathering their secrets before blowing steam. A signature, a voice. When the bedroom plaster parts, clusters of dried bruise, your tongue remembers its time as a wing. And the second poem comes from a story from New Delhi, India, from 2013. And it starts with this epigraph. Her relationship with her husband strained apparently beyond repair. A 27-year-old woman drowned her two children, a 6-year-old daughter in a washing machine, and an 11-month-old son in a bucket, and then committed suicide at her home. The way you have folded laundry, Saraswati folds continents. A monsoon born, she lays out a sari of lakes molting. She hums the first lullaby she ever heard. Can you caress sunset? Your clothes refuse to fold symmetrically. They have too many stories to be squared and tucked away. Each curve of a woman's throat is drizzle. Every reverie rumpled rains worn as breast. Water can shape your skin the way your regrets hide your beliefs. You want to be more than mantle, a man's public. Such secrets can only be captured by rope, topography of rungs ascending heaven as dark seas birth. Flattened against a floor, our scars yet stick out. As you lengthen knots, you pray your soul has found a new river, the way you hope no daughter is ever stuck in this machine we call a home. Every compromise an unbirthing, every argument a dry shore, ribs before prayer. May you each now have new bodies with new relations, knowing continents move through lifetimes that once river provided dancing ground, sisters chattering secrets, dark anemone swimming through our veins. Ache is a memory of ocean. Today, hope the laundry is dry, stacked neat, your children playing. Fear only what tomorrow does not bring, the sorrows you never got to hold. And I'll end with this very short poem. Saraswati nods the white man who, after hearing her liberation poems, embroiders dowry. Even now, goddesses outlast colonialism. Thank you again for being here today. And I'm so delighted to pass it over to Heidi to continue our readings.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Thank you so much, Purvi, for that really thoughtful introduction and weaving of our work in these ways. It's really lovely. And it's wonderful to be here. I just want to say thank you to Devin and to the Center for Book Arts, to Matt for the experience of this process of bringing this broadside into being. It's been really wonderful. And thank you to Zakia also for sharing this space and your work. I wanted to start with two epigraphs that are the epigraphs in my poetry collection, because they felt like a good way to set some of the stage for this evening. So this is a quote from Eve Tuck and C. Ree's article, A Glossary of Haunting. Haunting is the cost of subjugation. It is the price paid for violence, for genocide. Horror films in the United States have done viewers a disservice in teaching them that heroes are innocent and that the ghouls are the trespassers. In the context of the settler colonial nation state, the settler hero has inherited the debts of his forefathers. This is difficult, even annoying to those who just wish to go about their day. Radio ads and quips from public speakers reveal the resentment some settlers hold for tribal communities that assert claims to land and tribal sovereignty. This resentment seems to say, aren't you dead already? Didn't you die out long ago? Erasure and defacement concoct ghosts. I don't want to haunt you, but I will. And then this is a brief quote from Andre Breton's Nadia. Tell me who you haunt, and I'll tell you who you are. I wanted to begin with this poem of mine called The Past is a Candle in the Temple of My Mouth. Power of a ghost in my mouth, in the temple of my mouth, seat of my throat, undertongue a basket in which I carry you. Ghost, my precedent, my beloved revolutions, my beloved lost. Show me tomorrow's questions. Let me cut my teeth on their jagged, hopeful edge. The second poem, I actually would love to read the poem that is on the broadside, because I also think of it as an invitation and as a way to connect all of our ancestral inheritances and what they give us in terms of the gifts that they give to us toward our capacities for resistance, for revolution, for transformation of the world that we're in. This is called Lessons. Somewhere, a child feeds a bird seeds from the palm of her hand, a first lesson in satiation. It often strikes me that our grandmothers have left a trail of spices on the earth of our tongues, having dreamt we would need a map to the heat that brought us into the world. That is, we learn the lessons of fire from their crooked kitchen tables. How to kindle and burn, how to open up the appetite, turn turmeric or cinnamon into decades-long devotion, open a lover's mouth of yes from basil's sweet and pepper vim, tend a basic flame, and char down the plantation. And for me in that piece, the plantation is also like the historical reference of slavery, but also a more general reference to systems of domination and violence that we are trying to burn down. I'll share one more for this round of our duets. This is called Prayer for the Children Who Will Be Born with Today's Daggers and Their Tomorrow Eyes. These 500 years in our bones, striated conquistas dragging the letters of the harrowed tongue into the geography of our marrow, down, down. These armas in the arms of little, dragging blood across the pupil, dilating moon shadow, breathing in history with light, portraits of departed hearts, singing streets, the greed under the floorboards, libraries of the broken, amassing names we carve, unpredictable weather patterns, leaving splinters where our mothers' houses once stood, rotten mountains of perfect food rustled up in the company of flies and madness, empty oceans, homeless starfish, the severing of limbs, trees, human fists like thunder and vacant motherhoods grasping at apparitions. And we puncture the words we are teaching you with every revelation, every bit, every chain. We have failed to release and burn. We perforate the dawn before it even knows it has skin. So take this palm, this love, this fire hunger. See what second sight will sigh in your winding direction. Unpeel your soot-stained eyelids from the corpse parade and run it through, run it through. Find the tomorrow we could not give you. Zakia, I will pass it on to you.
Very large here, really incredible. Really nice stuff, Heidi. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you, Purvi and everyone at the Center for Book Arts and Delphine, and to all of my friends and family that are here. So I'm going to read, yeah, shout out to my parents, they're here, just hanging and swinging. I'm going to read, all of these poems feel like they're a little bit longer than I would prefer for just like the pace of this thing, so that's nobody's fault. Okay, this is called Now You See It, Now You Don't. Columbia, South Carolina, August 2017. Brick mansion born of a majestic imaginary. Moon pies, icy red wine spritzers, and alabaster columns framing the saltwater pool. Deviled eggs and Bonnie Tyler wailing her maudlin refrain almost triumphantly. We journeyed straight into the entrails of the dragon, equal parts genteel and scorched earth, on invite to witness the sun's one magic trick. We applauded the dark, out of genuine wonder and tipsy fervor for pure cosmic delight. Together we learned to not read every sign as an omen. The interstate closed up like a suture on the way back, forcing us to the choked back roads, transforming the GPS to a relic. Oxidized metal roofs atop ramshackle wood, meadows overgrown with cows and wildflowers, pickups worth more as scraps, probably. We inch past a single flag whose faded pattern is almost obscured by the golden hour, but a sudden breeze tautens it, revealing a Southern declaration. Yes, we are in another country. Land of trees felled and rotted by storms or industry, land of the general store with no glass in the windows, but an open sign, land of the sinister heart and drag as historical reverence. Pride is a sin, a certain text insists, but no one is reading here, and no wonder. The same dead that built the mansion haunt all the good books. After a total standstill, some locals turn down leafy, unmarked openings the first chance they get, and we celebrate their dusty tracks, then swiftly forget them. History, like the human eye, is selective, a toxic mix of what's there and what, in a blink, goes missing, never to be recovered. The sun went black for a moment, but now as traffic breaks, it sets as usual on terms it couldn't escape. So I actually really need like a table here too, because I'm not really, okay, I'll just read this next one. This is called Dolezal, etc., a social construct. Only under pitch of night will spruce admit they envy earthworms, their muscular mouths, complex perception, brilliant and flexible hearts. They bend their branches in almost praise, dropping needles that appear to the worms as death traps, cruel, minty stakes from some peeved god. By the clarity of first light, their carcasses suggest an intimate arrangement between close friends, gone awry. Braids fitted with beads argue the importance of parts to a whole, echoing a tinny drum with every shake of the head. Yes, yes, the head seemed to say, or no, 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 from another angle. In either case, extensions are only about $100. Bark-colored skin brushes on as an armor, but to determine blackface, first examine the lips. The wild is a playpen for deception. Rotted weeds take on the fragrance of begonia. The thin sheet of ice conceals a vexed lake, quicksand where the marsh puckers. In the forest of labyrinthine hearts, a nervous system folds in on itself, and nature's students come across a desperate slithering, worms fattened and slowed by spruce sap, or a way to enrich the soil. I'm gonna do, is it okay to do one more? I don't, the time is like, it's beating me. Okay, just because we're going back and forth. Just gonna show you guys my chapbook because it's here. It's good looking as ever. Beautiful lady. This is 1,000 more with an epigraph. Free your mind and your ass will follow. Harriet Tubman. Maryland's bareback is a canvas for propaganda, flanked in showy goldenrod, studded with French mulberries, Chesapeake sweetwater, satin for soil. Funk from the field's choke and wild petunias collected in jars make the quarters feel lived in, even when no one's been there for hours. Raccoons whistle through switchgrass, tapping tiny holes in the dark. All the muscle from the day's work stretches into song and string, one wide open drum with hands muting its mouth. Voices kindle a half mile from the big house, hidden from the light of the moon. Just eyes and teeth curved into grins, and only the night on their skin. So I'm gonna send it back to you, Heidi.
Thank you. Wow, Zakia, thank you for those. I just feel this delight at a certain kinship I feel in the kind of approach of close documentation that feels like a part of what both we do and what perhaps is part of at least what draws us into the work as method. Thank you for that. I wanted to share a few poems that are focused on Palestine. What's happening there right now is there are no words for that devastation. And I'm hoping that you'll all, that you feel okay being with me in these poems to as a kind of documentation and being with from afar. This poem I actually wrote, I think maybe about 10 years ago, and it's heartbreaking that it's still relevant. But it's called Like Fish, Like Song, Mourning for Palestine. Like fish in a waterless barrel, barely breathing, mosques, crumbling mountains, prayers piled high in the rubble, the silence of the after, the limp limb of a dream flattened, cut. The braided hearts of lovers thundered from the cord, the scholar's skull singed barren, a half-polished shoe in a doorway, teacup shards and their damp leaves bereft on tomorrow. Lingering smoke steams the mouth, blackens the teeth. The torn page weeps orphan paragraphs on the morning's breath, the melted beauty of trees and their molten archives, the poet's refuge gone. A cough, an echo, a curse on the sky and the stranger's fist. The thought that breathing in the dead from an ash-hot wind is one way to sicken the hunger and thick of dread, is one way to name the savagery of sorrow or the sorrow of savagery. Numbness and rage sparring for the aorta, like empty, like lost. Does disbelief catch the tongue? Does a wail make a sound if nobody is left to hear it? The tympanic membrane housed in the shelled and silent room. Every ear beyond a wall, every question quilted by a silver hair, every footprint cut short, every knock that left a hole or a shine on the floor, every secret crevice where hides a god, like hope, like holy, like song up from mud, like wingless birds in a world that sees a charred nest and scorches the tree, sets the whole forest ablaze. In the spring, the Khamsin will carry what remains of the dead. The dust will settle on our arms, in our rice. We will brush the dead from our eyes. This next one is called Winged Sonnet for the Migration Pattern of Birds as Protest to Occupation. In Beit Sahur, Palestine, a military base takes bird's eye view over people and land, the surveillant eye from the crow's nest, failing to break bread and not bones. Soldiers' hungers awry with the metallic taste of domination, dreams bloated with bullets, erected without knowing right on the route of millions of birds conferencing through the land's green sky, bright and raucous flocks by year to African winters. Forces forced to evacuate in the ecological storm of no, a story absent of the adequacy of bird cages. Molting anodyne mythologies, wings knifing faces in the meander, eggs in the minaret. And where Texas and Mexico meet, a Customs and Border Protection radio tower has been taken over by a committee of vultures, blanketing the structure in feces and vomit, a strum of vote. Feathered interruption of wall, its smoothly functioning communications network, transmissions of national boots, a kettle drop corrosive to the lifespan of Kepcher's wireless plan. I hear the birds slapping their knees in side-eye, tossing back the day's good meal. This is called Inherit the Kingdom. I work my flesh into the day soil. It is evidence enough of my consortium with the unlasting, the things that will eventually, you see, become ash. The dead of Saint Pierre know this, volcanic sand wanting the touch of feet or any warm awake. The brimstone shore remembers how we inherit the kingdom of limbs. I saw how I stained the alabaster dream. I saw the ash of body, the war child put to bed in the white phosphorus quilt. Who justifies the quietening of play or the plowing of the mixed parade of diaspora as a conflagration of peace? Who confuses the bomb plan for the covenant to lullaby? The charcoal frame remembers how we inherit the kingdom of pomegranate juice, its salutiferous and chin drip felicity. The key is buried. I am given to hungers beyond belief, senses built by haptic lightning. Raised on historical and botanical sorceries, I calendar erratic fits, rivalries with the destroyers of joy. Dissension is the first word, last I knew. Warn me, fine. I only fall drunk on lava. I, terrible world on the wreckage of stars. I is undone. No selves to fall air, we carry it all, the unlasting. We inherit the kingdom of intimate and broken, peculiar, wanting things. Thank you. I'll pass it back to you, Zakia.
Thank you. This is fun. I feel like I'm playing a sport or something, just like trying to unmute, like at the right time. And all right. I will do a few more, and then I guess we'll do the broadsides presentation. Okay, this is called Puzzle Reconsidering Its Borders. I want to tell you something about the Huzzle. It's like I think it's like an Iranian form. Sunu is here. Sunu and I learned this form from the same beloved professor, Roger Sederat, in grad school. But it's so you might have seen it if you read poetry for fun or pleasure or seriously. It's a form that people attempt. It was sort of in vogue recently, but people were all doing it wrong, and Suno and I knew they were because we had learned strictly the constraints of the form. This is also done incorrectly, just FYI, but okay, now you know. It's a Huzzle. Huzzle reconsidering its borders. In a rush, her limbs entangle her lovers, constructing the sweetest knot, the body losing its borders. Later, as one hand lightly holds the other, surrendering its lonely country, the body refusing its borders. At the protest, 20,000 strings strummed in discordant harmony, the human voice a sacred instrument. But pigs famously have no aesthetic discernment. Police set about reducing its borders. Free Palestine, a free Palestine. Palestine is always a freedom cry. But how does the hanged man make use of his neck? How to free Palestine while Israel is noosing its borders? Empire never tires, history suggests. An engine of we'll take that, an indefinite percentage of that, but it has been known to crumble unceremoniously, to implode after centuries of boosting its borders. Lovers again and en masse. Believing the body is the answer to every question, body the solve, body the savior. Thank God for hippies who always understood the body's designed to be losing its borders. This is the this is the poem that Purvi mentioned in your really kind introduction. It's one of my favorite poems. It's called "I'm Not a Kind at All, in fact," after Rita Dove. I've never met anyone like you, every man I've ever loved has said after trying to turn me to stone before turning to stone. Hundreds of years ago, townspeople had identical anxiety about the jinxed and guile and burned them to prove it, but only once they exploited the broomstick for its work. Fly, a lover might say to me, with a kiss on the bum for fuel, before realizing in a panic he didn't check for fire exits. I count to 10, touch each fingertip to thumb, the sensation of my own flesh irresistible. He requests a bite on his lip after midnight, and I snap. I snap my panties, wink at the amethyst in the corner, werewolf. I overdo it. I have this one steamy fantasy in which all protagonists conjure Medusa, rape avenged, snakes trashed with glitter, prepared to burn anything with derelict history. One night, an ex I believed I had disappeared touched my shoulder so tenderly from behind that I closed my eyes and trembled, then applied such instant pressure to his throat and temple, he simply went to sleep. Perhaps it was a miscue. Even the basic machinery of the heart sometimes jams. Sometimes a crumb gets stuck in my whiskers and I have to lick my chops like a cat, like a cougar preparing for seconds. At the stake, each smile a glint with fangs. So I'm going to do one more, and then is it going to be time, Purvi, can you?
Yeah, you can transition, or you can actually do one more round. We have time, so whichever feels right.
Oh, is there time? Okay, I'll do one more then. Hit you with this poem. This is also kind of a long poem and among my favorites. It's called "Hey Baby, What's Your Mars?" The black sky winks at me, or the stars are more gossipy than usual tonight. It's Friday, I'm untethered, brawny, sweetened by rose water, ready to charge the bar up with my very atoms, ancestors pushing through me with a round of applause, gnarled root to gleamed out petal tip. My lined eye is a swallow's wing, suggesting some fortunate reveler might take flight should he manage to hold my gaze between blinks. Is my gloss coat of arms a bullseye, shield, or arrow? I ask into my cleavage, buzzed. As if in reply, a little runt's hands repeatedly regard my figure as a good luck charm, which I might be, made more brazen by the dark, my face the only light he sees between break beats, my face gnarled as a root. I don't argue with tools. I'm no good when I'm hot. I take delight in denying apologies to those who make weapons of their wounds. There is no choice about who will die or when or under which circumstances, affairs being rooted as they are by the actions of our kin, now just starry ideas, zillions of light years beyond us. I am communicating with a firm hand, which he grabs. Then I'm a grown tall snapdragon, the slap clicking his mouth shut. Wisps of white clouds are just gas, I'm saying for reference, just another pretty thing you can never touch. He mimes a firearm. Look, he tells his friend who tries to calm him, you'll have to knock me out. But his small, shrieky body is trying to tell me something much more. The boys will never be sorry. They simply DGAF. So did I howl like the protean pussy in all our foremothers since the beginning of natural time? Did I blurt out a sailor's bloody tornado? Did I flex my tube top, making it a show, my collarbone, the golden ratio, arms like little barrels? Did he back up a full 3 steps, knocking into the DJ booth? Did I stutter? Did I take a final swallow of my beer, walk blasted into the night, wink back at the stars and not hear any footsteps or gunshots in my wake? That's it. We've got snaps. We've got snaps in the house. Thanks, babe. So I'm going to hand it back over to Heidi or Purvi. Heidi, okay.
We're doing another round, yeah? Okay. I wanted to also share a piece inspired by events in Colombia and Latin America. My family's from Colombia. This is quantum subversion ghazal, beginning with the violence of rice and moving on to a never-ending rise. And it's written after Tarfia Faizullah's Infinity ghazal, beginning with lice and never ending with lies, and admittedly breaks the rules of traditional ghazals. The poem sources and alters material from my own research and interviews with family members of the disappeared in Colombia, from human rights documentation on disappearance in Chile, from the work of Stephen Hawking, from a song title, Open Window by Victor Jara, who was disappeared and killed by the Pinochet regime. It also has lyrics from Violeta Parra's song of the Nueva Canción movement titled Gracias a la Vida. Rice, that is what we are expected to sing about, and beans, corn and cumbias, mother hands perched to watch the bread horizon. Where now is the word for such compliance? I sense its remnant urgencies, but there are deeper graves to excavate, a stretched canvas of dark forgetting, no horizon. I remind you, amidst the absence of bodies numbered as stars, we lose words, but open a window and let the rolling head vociferate are other ways to say horizon. I write down the names dropped like smallest stones from helicopters into the sea, fed to caimans. Do we forget the faces setting past the horizon of our familiar? All I can bury in ritual are questions. All that is offered for claims of missing is a bag of rice. We ride the bus anyway, nightmares fueled to the horizon. The air is ripe with wailing. Denunciation dissipated in the desert by gun cut, still breaks silence, sets a name, a word, a hum, miraged on the horizon. How else to sound the key? By art or flame? When Stephen Hawking says there are regimes from which light can't escape to infinity, he speaks of absence, event horizon, black holes, fascism's incessance. An unmapped field in which I fight gravitational collapse is both a killing horizon and a parent horizon. These are both a kind of narrow horizon. Astrophysics has much to say about finite distances, appearance, tidal forces, as do torture manuals. Still, the last gasp of liberty protests the quit of the horizon. The thing about finite distances is that they are no match for the latitudes of the grief-laden. Still, life gives, as to the ear in all its width, its oral horizon. The night and day, crickets and canaries, hammers, turbines, barks, showers, and so tender the voice of beloveds. You become my joy, crumbled earth who saturates her eyes in light, rises in spite of the sky's premonitions. Between two worlds you hover, a general haunting on the verge, a dawn emerging, ever stirring. You make morning, give horizon. I wrote this poem last summer amidst all of the anti-Black police violence and protests across the country. This is titled Amidst the Riots for Blue to Mean No Longer Forbidden the Very Air. And there's an epigraph by James Baldwin. This arrogance, autonomy, which is guaranteed the police, not only in New York by the most powerful forces in American life, otherwise they would not dare to claim it, would indeed be unable to claim it, creates a situation which is as close to anarchy as it already visibly is close to martial law. Who are the broken-hearted whose forget-me-not names simmer and flail, summer and sunder, catch rain in the palm of your hand? Who are the hungers morning blue and ultramarine? This is a time, perhaps now more than ever, I want to know your exiles, your sapphire memories. We are an emergency meeting point for our histories, collisions, midnight disasters. We are always. I hear you in my ear. I hear the yonder sound, your questions scaling cliffs. Even in a fear of heights, your questions peak and sky challenge the drop-bodied. How far they see from up there, a lupine and Ipomea dream. I never forget the beauty of your people and my people, a swirling dust setting us ablaze like the clam's good mouth, though they tremble, teal and sweat, say wide and many, how far and who. Imagine how we eject the empty-hearted offices, thunder and fire of billy club and leaded bean, the uniformed arrogance toward autopsy, the defense strategy of subjugations, spectacular defeat of fathers, spectered deferral of futures, a shrewdness and sounder of griefs. Ask instead the emperor butterfly to lead us in azure realm of remembering, aspiration. Watch wings brew storms for miles. Listen, that's the sound of us up there on the edge. Birds now, blue starlings perhaps, peering down on imperial architectures, our laughter shattering brick. I'll read one more for this round. This is after Sonia Sanchez Arias's sculpture called Dorian Gray and after Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray. There's an epigraph: behind every exquisite thing that existed, there was something tragic. Oscar Wilde. This is called Every Exquisite Thing. That the most ordinary flower might bloom, entire worlds crumble. That your dress may twirl and catch the candle gleam, fingers bleed by needle, child bones grow old by night. The reek of oil harvested, the brutal boring of terrestrial pores of slick and serum stolen earth, a cancering theft ripens. A 500-year-old violence, a plastic violence dancing in the glee of a mirror. O dancer, in your everyday routine, that you inhale the sweet scent of your own skin, an ocean chokes on pile-up. A mass grave of coral, bodies that once felt the tethered pulse of missing a sister, a manifest exploitation, water sweating human dust. You set aside the news, comment on the sun, how it glistens on the gentle waves. How beautiful, how marvelous, you say, how divine accumulation tastes, divorcing sugar from its labor deaths, hiding the afterglow of tragedy in the spell of pleasures, luxuries, wretched white wall of happiness designed to obscure the view. Every exquisite thing you've known has been somebody else's drowning, a vast field of obliterations, your paradise, a whole planet on its way to extinction. I'll pass it back to you, Zakia.
Thank you. Really good stuff. All right. I have gotten your message, Purvi. After I go this round, I will pass it to Delphine. Okay, so this is the poem that Delphine did a broadside of, and very excited for that reveal. Okay, it's called Bloodline. Before his mouth formed muscle enough to glue syllables together, before a full set of teeth, my 3-year-old father saw Emmett Till's northern skull pulped open, his first lucid memory. His southern town was gun split, swollen shut with slow-tongued mobs whose throats retched red with epithets, skin bound by tradition. Alive, James Chaney was the whisper in a fringe town's trees, a twinkle in the nation's eye. When federal divers fished the Mississippi for his flesh, he had already turned to spook, and their nets ran so fat with bones, disfigured with age and crime, they had to send some back. The same summer, long before my father's voice evened with bass, he waded that river, nearly dyed red, cautious of swallowing even small drops of history. By the time he was 6 feet with headlights turned north, something guttural, something almost animal, itching his twang, Mississippi was already worked into my genes, a nascent, veined tick. And then I'll just do one more and then we can do the broadsides. This is called After a Brief Silence, Your Therapist Recommends Imagining Absolute Joy. Saturday and you've slept late. You sunglass down a scorched avenue through a dozen bees, wild and open off sunflowers' nectar. Good for them, you think. Their buzz are pretty static here where you're god of the weekend light, TCB on bike. Here, everything decomposes in perfect harmony. Here, you find a used book in the dollar bin, like some feminist bat signal from junior high. This anthology of women marauding the internet in 1996 is now your sole possession. Here, everyone you love dies only when they're ready, like a nap. At a woody haunt, straight ahead soul sloshes then simmers you, and your crush admires your waist torque. Here, your hyacinth, your clove. The sun still inside you, you could burn this place down, but would rather dance under the sweet influence of a Belgian beer. Motown's nasty hum frees your tongue as your crush whispers a joke about Stevie whipping his head like a famished cobra. She is all mauve, menthol, and mania. Here, lightning never strikes the living. $100 for a trim and press comes with pear tarts and seltzer. Your hairstylist went to Banneker High, where she played goalie. She believes you have a commercial face and touches your cheek, hands of lilac. 22 with Florida gold jagging her teeth, either flirting or begging for tips. She sings a lyric, voice a long feather, and floats the clippers like a Muhammad. You could go out stinging and leave your carcass in a field of flowers, but here, where your hair is done up like a myth, you gorge on sweets and make out. So now I'll pass it to Delphine.
All right, here I am. Okay, well, hi, thank you, Zakia, for your powerful words. Yeah, and thank you everyone for coming out this evening. So I'm going to share with you a draft of the broadside, which I hope to get printed within the next 2 weeks or so. But when I first read the poem, I was can you see it? Yeah, okay. I was immediately struck by just the words and how powerful they were and what it actually did to my body and what my subconscious remembered, and I think so much about the stories of terror that this country holds. And, even just thinking about where we are in the world today and how for some, this seems to be new when we think about this type of terror. And this poem just kind of really shows that it seeps within the rivers, within the bodies, of what this place is. But at the same time, I think about the body, I think about the waters as something that holds all types of stories that remind us of the pain and terror, but also stories that make us insist on reading because on living, because we continue to live and to be free, at least imagining that freedom, but our bodies are always free. So I think about that tension. So when I was working on the broadside, that water, the wavy, the water, I was thinking about the endless water, and then also the veins and the blood, the things that carry the blood, and how that continues. And that's where the shape came from. While making the poem on the broadside, at least designing it, it allowed me to read over each line again and again and again. And every time I read it, it became even more powerful to me. And even reading some lines out of order and then going back, and so that whole process just really exemplify how powerful this poem is. So yes, it's really my honor to work with your words, Zakia. I mean, it was something. It really does something to
So
your
sweet.
body. Yeah. So thank you so much. I can't wait to I have like a French paper that I'm going to print this on. And for now, I'm thinking about the white ink on the black paper, which is going to give it a nice texture, and the red for bloodline. But then blue, I was thinking the blue symbolizes freedom, insisting. It's also thinking about those deities, that will be here to guide us through. So I wanted to have all three things intermingling one, because I feel like it's always circular, right? The past informs the present, informs the future, informs the past, all of that. So that's what I was thinking about. So again, thank you so much.
What a great job. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, this did something for me, just to work with your words. And Heidi too, I didn't work on your poems, but just hearing you both today has been so amazing for me. So thank you both. Okay. Yeah.
All right, and I will be sharing on behalf of Matt Collins, who can't be here tonight. I'll go ahead and share my screen for everybody. So let me just give you a little zoom in here. Matt Collins says, when I first read Heidi's poem Lessons, her direct and elegiac images called for a light touch. Later we spoke and Heidi gave me some historical background. I sought to get some of the Colombian país into the design. My first objective was to make use of the vast foundry type collection at Center for Book Arts. I was instantly drawn to Baskerville for the poem's text. Baskerville has both a serenity and directness that appealed to me. After a few days of setting and resetting type, I was discouraged because this particular font was worn and uneven. I came to see that the careworn type was just the thing for Heidi's poem, which had so much to say about the past. I began experimenting with the overall design and came up with a very classical, almost rigid frame within frame element that contained the title and Heidi's name. My idea was to let the text stand resolutely on its own, separate from other material. We both ended up agreeing that the frame structure was indeed limiting, even distracting. We went back and forth on the use of the illustration. I ended up using one small ornament designed by McKellers, Smiths, and Jordan circa 1895. My initial thought was to use the whole panel of the McKellers series, but again, decided it could be confusing. As we continued, the design became so simple it was in danger of disappearing like a stranger. I thought that by using a really textured, lush paper, I could recapture the text. I chose an Ecru Crane's Lettra. It has a dense and pillowy feel that takes the ink. In the end, a deep typographic flourish was needed to balance out the page's austerity. I chose Stevenson Blake's inline chisel typeface for the title because it adds height without adding weight. And I'll go ahead and zoom in on the final design. And many folks have purchased this with their registration tonight. And if you didn't get a chance to do that, both of the broadsides will be online at centerforbookarts.org/book-shop. So definitely pick those up. Heidi, I don't know if you also want to share anything about the design process, but you're more than welcome to do so.
I'm just grateful to Matt for the process. This was new. This kind of collaboration was new for me. And I think it's a learning in itself to know how much to offer my own vision versus letting an artist do what they want with my words. But we did talk about, for me, part of this poem is in honor of my grandmother in Colombia, and she was kind of known as the neighborhood herbalist and would offer her medicinal knowledge to just kind of, basic health issues that people would bring to her. Um, and I appreciated that part of what Matt did with the design was the text at the bottom on the left side is kind of in a cauldron shape, sort of evoking the kitchen and the pot and cooking. And so, yeah, I'll stop there.
Awesome. Thank you, Heidi. And I think that we will have the poets read once more before we close out. Heidi, would you like to start?
Sure. And I just want to say thank you again, everybody, for sharing this time together and making room for poetry. This is one longer poem. It's called The Weeping Time, or Chaos Theory for the Motion of Heavenly Bodies. And there's a Langston Hughes epigraph. Say, who are you that mumbles in the dark? And who are you that draws your veil across the stars? 1. And who are you who remember the largest sale of people, a coordinate auction of black life cut to the horse's stall in the belly of a racetrack, the son of the author, the fugitive slave clause, drawing the flag across the stars across the flag in plot. The church of capitalism and the law have always been mates. The scientist hatching the terror of flight, the gloom of the grave, 2 days composing goodbyes, compelling the sky, its eyes to open over the valley of humiliation, the valley of forced goodbyes and sobbing, fall, a rainstorm of grief drenching everything. Who are you who remember the weeping time and the sun come back and the first quail call and North Star night saying, drink, drink. Be the water, break the hold, run dark and wayward, bring a chaos down. 2. And who are you who remember the lone star and border rivers, too many daughters on the shore, dimly seen through the mists of the deep water rushing made weapon, desert made weapon, so much earth made weapon against its will. How many wake to walk the desert, to walk by day the sun, to walk by night by stars against a surveilling coordination of brown life cut to the land of open graves, or the cell in the belly of the heat, a chamber of children barred from touching, stolen children lost. This is still the weeping time. And who are you who will leave water jugs and carpet slippers to ease a way in, to let somebody slip under and through as a somebody and not simply a body in dread, silence, repose. And still, the wind brings down the wall, compelling the eyes, their skies to open and praying, howl a tempest out of nothing, and the wind come back, and the dream of dying bears, the dream of flying and North Star night, saying, forget the uncertain hour, drink, drink, raft be a vessel, break the border and bar, bone weary traveler, find the bird, the aloe in the dust, the star. 3. And who are you who hear the echo in its afterlives battered against the vast ceiling, saying, let there be no escape on earth, while witness trees still creak with the weight of. And who are you that carry in your lungs these heavenly, beautiful bodies, still all black and brown and shining, and every day gathering motion, your own buried breath, a cemetery overflowing. How do you inhale all these centuries again Exhale in the gravity of grief to send up and out the plan to change orbit, to halt the eternal return, deliver all the murmurs of the earth, a whole symphony filling up the eyes of the sky, again a disobedient rag and string. Who are you who dance yet in the dead of white, its winter spotlight interrogation? Who sing the names of mutiny, the skyship in reverse bearing these mortal illuminations? Who are you that see inside every town there is a town still burning in the name of obey and execute faithful observance? There a map in song crumpled in the vellum mouth of North Star night to hide its sharpest edge. West Philly and 16th Street in Birmingham and New Orleans, in ash, El Mozote and Zacapa in ash, and Adelantos and Rikers' sunless prisons. And today, again on the landscape of flesh, a holy mess, too many exit wounds in constellation. For who are you smoldering in this mumble of history? Say, who cherish the other vessel, black and brown and shining, the hoisted sail in navigation, another star to steer by, who come disguised as wishes and run the ship aground in anarchy. Say, we tire of the blood that gives red halo to the moon. And what is sufficient proof that somewhere a mother was made by giving her child the light? And what is sufficient proof the light gone out is a killing, a curtain drawn over a world and its wonders? How in the doughy, glowy scattering under pitch to proof and uproar and a rising, on a clear night, we brighten the broad earth, and how, though still it is the weeping time, and say, who are you? Thank you, everybody.
I'm back, baby. Okay, I'm gonna do these two relatively short poems. I think of them as companion poems, but they may not be, really, aside from my naming them that. This is called Weinstein, etc. Here is a house you may only enter or exit with his permission. His permission is a weather vane linked to his desire. His desire is an open book all of the neighbors have read. The book is considered a classic in the canon and required reading for high schoolers. Even high schoolers learn about this house. They aren't too young. I've tried to train my male peers to apologize for any utterance of a particular word made in my presence. Sorry, Za, I know you don't like to hear it, but she really is one. The live studio audience is alight with laughter. Use an adjective, I chide over the noise. Did a lady say something mean to you? Did she do something you didn't want her to? Did she not ask your permission? My lovers learn how I take my oral as if studying for a credential, like their entire future depends solely on my satisfaction. Over and over, the lesson etched onto their tongues until their teacher is spent. Of course, I know all the redacted bitches in my direct vicinity do little to change what exists in the canon, but my bed is a tiny, thrilling part of a house. I am building a new world with this house. And this is my last poem. You've been a great audience, okay, on the internet, you guys. It's called Annotation on a New Life. Just after the first of the year, I left a man I loved slumped over his eggs Benedict, whimpering, making a bit of a scene as I clacked out the bistro, hopped up on self-styled carte blanche, and full on top of that, I had the quiche. Some years we are Benedict, others compel us to become our own benedictions. 2 years ago, after being good and conned by my ex, I noticed a pattern. Every place in the city I went, construction workers showed off with elaborate semaphore, stopping traffic for me with a wink and a smile, using their little bit of power to gain my favor. I would not call these tiny victories. I would call them evidence that I will take what you have, then forget you, I think to myself as I leave my mark all over town, gesturing crudely with a straight face, much to the boys' disgust. I could do this all day and drag as an Ouroboros that alarms and dazzles with one question. Once she sheds for the first time, does the snake even remember her old skin? That's it. Thanks, guys. Good night.
So great. Thank you so much, Zakia, Heidi, Devin, and the Center for Book Arts, Delphine, what a beautiful piece. Matt, also for your broadside. And again, thank you so much to the Center for Book Arts. Jenna has been also very crucial, and Liz as well, in terms of making these series, both the readings and the broadsides happen. It's such a joy to be able to see such care with language and such care with the smallest of things to make it beautiful and to really feel. Delphine, I loved what you said about how you felt the words in your body, and that just comes so much alive in what you did. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Zakia and Heidi, for making us feel in our bodies and for bringing your unique ways of understanding history into the present, into the future, your incantations. So I invite everyone just to close us out with some snaps and claps, and feel free to unmute and whistle if you want. We are so delighted to have had you here today. And I invite you to the last reading in this series of Healing Futures, which is Weaving Thresholds, and will feature the two poets, Elena Rivera and Sahar Muradi, whose birthday also happens to be today. So happy birthday, Sahar. And hopefully we'll see you in 2 weeks on June 3rd for their reading. Be well, everyone. Thank you again for joining.
Take care.